The meeting is being live streamed.
All right.
Okay, you can start now. Give me 1 second. Done. Yes, now you're on our YouTube.
Cool.
Okay, go
So I'm
ahead.
going to post a link to the site if anybody wants to check out the workshop live, because I have a bunch of like interactive examples and things if people want to check them out and stuff.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. I will do it. I'll do a tweet now.
and then
Uh,
like here's the password to join. And I don't know about like if you put the password out like on Twitter or wherever, because mostly these are built for people who are like here for this kind of
okay, yeah, I
thing.
understand.
So not sure how that will, because like the
They
internet
can
is a
DM. They can
place.
DM me.
Yeah,
And DM for to get to participate
yeah.
with Dwayne. Dwayne's workshop. If you are on Twitter. Okay, yeah, that's I just put something here. So no, it's on our Twitter. If you can tweet it as well, and
Okay. Yes, I don't use Twitter a lot.
and I'm gonna I can do a bit of promotion so we can get more people to join. 1 second. Let's put some casts to. Okay, and I did a promotion on the thing, so you get a few more people to join now. Okay,
All right.
I think we're ready to go. Let's start, and I can participate while we're waiting for other people.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. So yeah. Okay. All right. So yeah. So how's everyone doing? Hope you're doing well. You can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. So now, so this is the website I created. It's I figured I'm gonna be doing a lot of different workshops, so I created a website because you will see that I do that a lot. And so the website is myworkshops.live because that's where you can watch my workshops live. And if we're not live, that's also where myworkshops.live because live and live are the same in English, which is amazing. So yeah, so you'll be able to check it out later on if you so choose to. All righty. So the way you enter, so you go to myworkshops.live, and I posted a link, so you can click on that. And I also posted the passwords because when you enter, so we got work web components are awesome. Cityjs Athens 2022. Thanks for having me again. So see, it's live now. Notice that this other workshop, says the date, and it's also in the local time because right now I'm in Greece, and so it tells you the local time. So depending on where you are, it will show you when the workshop is in your local time, and we'll talk about that soon because that's also a web component. Let's see, and then also see it turn to live now web component. So what you do is you hit enter, and then you type in whatever username you want. So I don't know, Alice or whatever. And I posted the password in the chat, in the live chat, so you can check it out there, or you can DM the Cityjs conference uh, to get the password. And it's so because I have interactive examples, and so we kind of like follow along. And so I want people who want to be here to be here. So yeah, there's that. All right. So once you do that, myworkshops.live, then you get the password, whatever the username is, you'll be able to submit it, and then you will see the slides should pop up. Oh, and then I also forgot, I have it set up to where enabling the audio. I have the speech to text recognition. So what happened is that the words that I'm saying are going to show up as like little speech bubbles above my head, the little character, and hopefully it's accurate. So it's all automatically generated. And then
And
also, oh, I'm sorry, you said something?
the password is I tried it. 1 second, but it says wrong password. Uh,
Uh, like you're not putting capitals or anything, right?
no,
Or
no,
like,
lowercase. What you have copy paste there.
yeah, like I did it earlier and it worked. Let me,
This one.
I don't know, where are you? Yeah, let me do it again. Yeah, you put in just a regular username, right?
Yeah, yeah. I put the Aris, and I put the password you gave, so you can test it.
Yeah, that's weird because see, like I did it and it's right here.
1 second. Let me try.
So this is what it should look like for anybody
Yeah,
watching.
yeah. That's what I did. I don't have any spaces or anything. Can I? 1 second. No, that's what I put. I can share my screen if you want to.
Yeah,
1 second.
that's weird because I just did. Wait,
No.
wait. Make sure you're in the right one. Like you have to be because I have 2 upcoming uh workshops. So make sure because I have one in Atlanta coming up next week.
Yeah,
So
but
make
I
sure you're.
click on the workshops live. Can you see my screen?
No, I can't see it.
Oh, sorry. 1 second.
I need to stop my. Let me stop sharing my screen. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Now I see it. Oh, now everybody knows the password. Crap. Okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. See, you're in the wrong. You're in the wrong one.
Because I click on that.
You're in the wrong room.
Uh,
Yeah.
ah,
No.
yeah.
One. Yeah. There you go.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So yeah. Don't show the password again. Okay. You're show the password again. Okay. Just. All
It's
right. I'm just
okay.
gonna
It's
share my screen.
okay. Don't worry about it. How difficult is to change a password?
Well, we'll see if any shenanigans happen because otherwise we have to like reconnect and stuff. So we'll see.
Okay, I'm here now. So you have
Okay.
an attendee.
Nice. Let me share my screen. Okay. Am I sharing my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So right now, so like I said, the words should be hopefully coming up accurately in like little speech bubbles above me.
Mm-hmm.
And then also I have a section. So if anybody has any questions, you can actually ask a question in the little section. And then I may ask for thumbs up. So there's a little thumb up icon that you can also click. And then if the video gets kind of like too much bandwidth and it starts to like break up, we can actually, I have there's an enable audio, and
Mm-hmm.
that will do it instead of video, it will just, you'll be able to hear me because there's no reason to even like see me. Everything is like on the slides. So
Mm-hmm.
and there's that. So, all right. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Eris. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I appreciate it. All right. So yeah. So, okay, cool. Everything's working. So this is web components are awesome. And hopefully you'll think so too at the end of this. And disclaimer, this is as I understand it. So there's so many, as anybody who's worked on the web knows that things are happening all the time. And so things are always, there's always something to learn. And so I'm finding that also web components are also that, which makes them pretty awesome. And so it's one of the things that make them awesome is that there's always stuff happening with it and people are working on it and things, and makes it really cool and exciting, at least for me. All right. So this is as I understand it of May 2022. All righty. Can't believe it's May already. Oh man. All right. So question. I'm not sure how many people are in the room, but who has heard of web components? And so this is some of the interactivity that I was mentioning so that you can like actually vote. And so go ahead and press yes or no. Have you heard of web components? Anybody? Just Eris is waiting for the show to
Yeah,
go
I did hear. Yeah, they
through.
are
Okay.
awesome.
So oh, so you
I'm
didn't
gonna press yes. 1 second. Yeah,
oh, you
yeah,
haven't yet. Oh, okay.
yeah. No,
Okay,
press.
cool. Good. All right. So yeah, that's another thing. So the slides should automatically update for you all as well. So as I go through this, the slides will automatically change. And then I'll also be able to see different things like that. So cool. All right. Nice. So, okay, so that is working good. So now I know the slides are changing for folks. Cool. All right. And then at the end of this, the recording, I'm going to allow the control so you'll be able to do it yourself later when we're not live. All right, so the goals of this workshop. I'll just give kind of like a general understanding of web components. I want to show the value of web components because I think that helps with the awesomeness. I'll be able to create, we're going to create and integrate a web component and then also show some resources. So don't let this workshop be like the only place that you just like, oh, now I know everything about web components, I'm done. I want this to be kind of like a starting point. I want to show that it's awesome, hopefully provide like the incentive that it being awesome for you to go and learn more about it. So the more folks that are in web components, I think the better. It helps bring in different like ideas and things from people with different backgrounds and things and experiences. So I'm going to provide some resources so you can go and check out more. All right. So this is just kind of like the starting point. If you've never heard of web components before. Now, do you have a GitHub account? Feel free to yes, no. I guess there wouldn't be a maybe. It's either yes or no. So hopefully it updates. Oh, that's another thing, like audio. I mean, audio is quicker over the internet than video because there's so much more processing done. And so sometimes there could be like a 20-second delay with video, whereas the audio is a lot faster. So sometimes I'll just kind of wait a little bit to see if anybody answers if you're watching the video.
Yeah, 1 second. I'm switching between screens.
Oh, no,
And
you're good.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. There you go. All right. And so now figured that sometimes showing my assistant turned on. So sometimes showing who's using web components will also kind of like, for some folks, be like, oh, this is awesome. I didn't know so-and-so is using web components, right? And so I wanted to kind of like quickly go over some of the large companies that you may be familiar with here on this slide. And then, a lot of times I'll have the source where I got things so that, again, you can go check it out for yourself. All right. So like you can see here, we got Google, Salesforce, EA, Twitter, GitHub, YouTube. So now we're going to talk more about EA, but Google, they even have their own framework that they use to create web components. So that's how big Google is into it. Salesforce has their own set of components called Lightning Web Components. And so it helps to build their Salesforce applications a lot quicker. We also have Twitter. So from what I understand, the like when you embed a tweet, that's like a web component. We also have YouTube. If you ever view the source on YouTube, you'll see a bunch of like YT hyphen something. And those are all like YouTube web components. And then GitHub. GitHub, all the like when you make a PR request or you make a change or you push something, there's always like however many time ago, like 20 seconds ago, a day ago, a month ago, those are web components. So, but I want to talk more specifically about EA. And there's this video, which I have a link to that you can check it out, where they're discussing how EA, which Electronic Arts, for people who may be familiar, they're a very large video game publishing company. And they have 22 studios, at least at the time of the video. And so I'm sure it's more, at least like 10,000 people across 30 locations worldwide. And they're responsible for games like NBA Live, Star Wars, The Sims, Battlefield, a bunch of different games. And so when creating websites like projects properties for on the web for these different games, they started becoming kind of like disjointed because you'd have all these people just making these websites for these games. So navigation would be different from site to site. So trying to go from place to place, it felt kind of disjointed, as you may think, because you can do all sorts of things on the internet. So they wanted to create a design system where you could customize it as much as you want, but they still provided the same elements across the different properties, across different games. So that way, going from game to game, it didn't seem so random and you'd get lost and just kind of give up. And so they created a design system. So it's a cool video. I suggest checking it out at some point. And then, so now, if you've ever used any of these things like the video element, have you ever wondered how just by putting the tag video with the source, you get a full video player, fully functioning video player with a play button? We have the timer here. You can control the audio. We have to make it full screen. And then even like a menu that pops up. Like all of this just from video and source. I always found that to be kind of amazing. And turns out it's like a web component. Same thing with the audio element. You're able to just click, put audio, the source, and you have a fully functioning audio player. And then this one is like one of my favorite HTML elements. It's like the details. So if you ever wanted to have like a little drop down thing, it's just details and some other stuff. It's pretty cool. And again, I have sources to all of them. You can check them out on MDN, Mozilla Developer Networks. And yeah, super cool stuff. All right. This one, the model viewer, this is quite possibly like one of the coolest implementations of web components I have seen. Like you're able to kind of click and drag this little 3D model of an astronaut spacesuit. And it is so cool. Now, they've actually updated this. So now I couldn't imagine all the 3JS, all the sorts of like modeling, all the things that had to go into, all the technologies to go in to make this thing work the way it does. And so you can check out the website. So modelviewer.dev. We're going to take a look at that right now. But see, they've updated the suit to be actually Neil Armstrong's spacesuit. They have a scan, a 3D scan of Neil Armstrong's suit. And you see it's loading here. I think the internet here is not that great. So again, if the video gets choppy or what have you, you can go directly to the audio. But it's loading. But you can see here, so to get started, the quick start is just you put in some little JavaScript so that the browser knows what to do when it comes to the model-viewer. You see we have an alt tag, which is always good to have. And then we have a link source, just like with video. And it's a link to this .glb file, which is the 3D model. And then they have AR modes, which is amazing. So you can put this suit, like if you're looking on mobile, like a mobile device, you're able to place this suit in the real world with you. And so then you can see they have like the poster thing that shows up while it's loading. A lot of different things that you can configure. It's pretty cool. And then again, you just, now notice, see how it has like the shadow where the feet is? That's super cool. And even the reflection in the helmet, like that moves around. So this is like one of the coolest implementations of web components ever. Because again, all you have to do is just put in the model viewer, and then to get everything working, the source and of your 3D file, and you have a working 3D model viewer. It is in the back. That's super cool. All right. Again, let's get back to this. Again, you already know I think this is awesome. All right, so that's cool. Now, I saw that and I was like, how can I make that like interactive? A lot of times when I think of things, when I come across things on the internet, I'm like, I wonder how I can make that interactive so that other people can kind of like join in on it, or maybe like be able to communicate with. Because again, I don't know if I mentioned this, I'm a developer advocate at Vonage. And so communications is like our thing. So we help developers build applications to be able to communicate through the internet. I probably didn't say that at all, but yeah. My name is Dwayne also. I get so excited. I just want to jump into these things. And so, hi, I'm Dwayne. I'm a JavaScript developer advocate at Vonage. And so I get to build cool projects that show people how they can communicate with each other or with things, however, wherever, whenever they want through the internet. And so I saw the model viewer example, and my mind totally went to like, how can I make this to show people how cool web components and WebXR, which is augmented reality and virtual reality on the web, and how to like they can use that to communicate. And so I thought of tic-tac-toe, because previously I made a video tic-tac-toe where you can see the person you're playing. And so I created a WebXR tic-tac-toe game with audio chat. So as you're playing the game, you can speak with the other person. And so I'm not gonna be able to do that in this workshop, but I have it. You can go to xoxr.games, and I have it there so you can check it out for yourself. All right, so I'm just gonna play this video really quickly, and so you can kind of get an idea. So what happens is I have the same, using the same model viewer. You see, I have it in this web page, and the same way you can kind of like move around the astronaut suit, you can also do with the tic-tac-toe board. And then they have an augmented reality version where you can do that. So I have it placed there in the real world. I'm doing this through my phone, and you can see we're playing tic-tac-toe. So using Vonage APIs, I'm able to send the moves to the other player and keep it in real time. So the game is in real time. And you can see that I can move around the augmented reality version of the tic-tac-toe game. And I'm going to talk about more how I did this in the meetup. So this is, I want to talk about how I went and made this tic-tac-toe WebXR game with audio chat tomorrow at the meetup. So if you're in Greece, come through. And so you can see I'm playing a game. So the moves are being passed back and forth using the Vonage APIs. And so I just built this out, and you can see we have the winner there. And then you probably can't see it in the video, but there's like on the web, there's like confetti that pops up. And so it's pretty cool. So again, you can check it out, xoxr.games. Let's take a look at the website. Make sure it's up and running, because I have this, going to do this tomorrow. Yeah, cool. And yeah, so then details, you just click here to play the game. And then I actually have like how I made it also. So if you're not there, you can always check it out. Yeah, cool. So there's that. Again, model hyphen viewer. It's amazing. All right. So question is, let's see here. So now, like I said, I like to make a lot of websites. We just saw like one of them, and you're on one that I just created. And here's another one. This is my actual website, my own personal website. And then this is a project that I created to help to stream. It's funny, to stream meetups locally. I live in Orlando, Florida. And so some people couldn't make it out to meetups. And I was like, well, I'm here anyway. So I would stream them, the meetups, and I created a website where people could go and watch and communicate and like chat during the meetups. All right, so I create a bunch of projects, sometimes too many projects. So here's a bunch of other projects. And so I was running into the issue of where for each project, I wanted to say like what I used to build it. And so it became a problem, kind of like with EA, where I was just remaking these pages over and over again. And it's like all the time, and it became kind of like a chore. I did not want to keep recreating about pages for each project. And so with one thing about web components is that they can be reusable. And that's like one of the main things. And so I decided to create a web component, Dwayne-made, and it looks like that. Even on the website that you're at now, don't go there yet because it might break the connection. But there's an about section, and it'll look just like this. So the way I have this web component set up is that I pull in the data from the project's like source code, like where the data is, the database, like the backend. I pull that in, I pull in the data, and then the web component knows like, all right, this data is going to be the about section, like the actual about of the project. And then the things I use to build it goes in this section and knows how to format it. Again, see the details tag, big fan. Any updates, it'll put that there. And then this one's just a constant one, so that doesn't change, but it just kind of says it goes to my website. All right, so I found it in my own personal use quite useful and handy. So I just created my own. Instead of redoing it over and over again, I have this, which I can use. And it's also mobile friendly as well, which is good. So I don't have to keep doing it over and over again. Another cool thing about web components is that you can, with the same web component, you can have multiple uses. So for example, one of my favorite, another favorite HTML element is the input tag. And it's so cool that just by changing the type, you get so many different uses out of just that one tag. So for example, if you have the type being button, you have a button. If you want a checkbox, just type equals checkbox. Now this one is always super cool to me, the color. So you get a color picker for free just by changing the type to color. And now you get a full, like, just, I couldn't even imagine what kind of code I would need to write to be able to get this section up here with the gradients right there. And then just by dragging this, that changes. And then when you select a color, so you can even like select a color outside of that component and have it show up and then get the values here. Like, that is amazing. I don't know, like, I'm constantly amazed and impressed with the web, and being able to work in this space is like magic for me. And so, and then you even get the different types of values that you want. Like, you can get the hex. That is all that from an input tag, type, color. We live in amazing times. Then you can also get like a file picker, which is cool as well. You know, if you want to put in some text. We have the range. We have like a radio button. And then this one is also cool because, and we'll see this later, if you've ever worked with trying to work with time on the internet, you know, it can be quite a hassle. And so be able to just have like this date picker that comes with a full calendar and the time, that is kind of amazing. And so, yeah, shouts to the input button. You're doing great things. All right. So then I, again, create a bunch of websites, and a lot of times, a lot of the elements are the same. And like I said before, working with time on the internet is kind of a hassle. They're getting better. There's things coming up that are going to make things like the temporal API. That seems super cool. And so till that comes out, I was like, hey, well, a lot of my projects, so I do when I'm in town, I do when I'm not traveling, basically, is I do these like Sunday like study sessions, I guess you can kind of say. And it's at untilit.works, where you just kind of like work on a thing that you've been meaning to work on until it works. So yeah, not here to promote that. But there's a countdown here that when it's more than like an hour, it will show up as the local time. Kind of like, it's the same, again, it's the same web component that's here on myworkshops.live. So it will show I have it to where you can set it. It will show the local time and day and time, right, of the event or whatever it is. And then I can configure it to be, well, within this time, show a countdown timer, which you can see here. So normally I set it for like an hour. And so underneath the hour, it will show a countdown timer. And then I also have it to where you can set the time, like the countdown time also. And so it'll show down. So like if you want it for like 2 minutes, you can have it show a countdown timer for like 2 minutes. And I also created this other site. When Twitter Spaces came out, I thought they were super cool. And I would randomly find Twitter Spaces and just join in and just listen while I'm doing work or whatever. And a coworker saw that I was in a bunch of different Twitter Spaces, and they found it interesting as well. And they're like, oh, how do you find all these different Twitter Spaces to join? I'm like, I don't know, they just randomly show up in my timeline. And so that got me thinking, like, I wonder if there's a better way to be able to go and find out about Twitter Spaces. So I looked at the Twitter documentation, and I saw that they have an endpoint that you can search for Twitter Spaces for different key phrases. And I saw that .space was a thing. And so I was like, that's a sign to me creating this website, which is find my next .space. It's just a kind of like a quick page I created where you're able to search for Twitter Spaces. And so let's go with Web3. I'm going to say Web3 because Web3 always brings up search results. I'm going to search for that and getting the space, getting the matching spaces. And so what's happening is going to show so like I said, Web3 is always a good example because there's always a Web3 space happening on Twitter. And so you can see here, I have this section. These are happening live now. And so you're able to view the space. You can see like who's hosting the space. And then you can add it to favorites, which will add it to this section here. But what I want to show is that, see here, the live now, this countdown timer, or even this section here that shows in the local time, that's all the same web component. And so when it's more than an hour, it shows this. When it's less than an hour, it shows a countdown timer. And then when it's actually happening live, when it's in the past, pretty much, it will show, it will show the words live now. So that's customizable to whatever you want there. And because it fires an event that lets the application, the outer application, know that, hey, this is going on live now. What do you want me to do? And it shows live now. All right, so we're gonna talk about that a little bit more. So super cool. It helps me out, and that's why I think they're awesome. Hopefully you see some uses and it becomes awesome for you. All right, so pretty cool. One web component can have multiple forms. So for some more examples, I have these links here, which are pretty good. Let's check them out real quick because they may change in the future. So I want to show what it looks like now. And so you can see here, they have different examples, different things that you can do here. And so they have them listed out here also. So one that's pretty cool is the, where is it? The pop-up info box web component. That's cool. So just pop-up -info, like image and text, which you want to show up. There's also, what's also cool is with web components, you don't necessarily have to have like, have this like pop-up -info or the Dwayne-timer or Dwayne-made web components. There's one where you can actually just build upon, I guess they might have changed this, because there was one where it was just like a regular attribute. I think it was like a list element, but then you put like an is, and then, oh wait, here we go. The expanding list web component. So you see, it's just a regular UL, and then they have is expanding list. So you can check out, this is another way of doing web components. But we're going to talk about building our own with our own naming, our own that we could choose. And so it's going to look more like pop-up -info. But there's other ways you could do it as well, which is super cool. All right, yeah, so there's that. You can check it out. Again, resources so that you can explore yourself if you find this to be awesome. So are web components getting any cooler? Again, I'm not sure how many folks are in here, so I'll probably just kind of wait like 10 seconds. And if not, just kind of keep it moving. But hopefully you're seeing by seeing all the other like large companies and entities that you may have heard of using web components, seeing how I personally use web components, and maybe that'll spark something in you, that there's a thing that you've been meaning to, because you do it all the time, kind of like extracting that into a web component so you can just reuse it. So seeing my own personal like journey with it, and then hopefully maybe and showing that you've also come across web components, and then showing like model viewer, hopefully it's getting cooler for you. And so yeah, so there's that. So we talked about who's using web components and how I'm using web components, and I showed a couple of examples. Let's talk about what actually makes a web component, right? So there's like 3 technologies. Used to be 4, but like imports, like doing module imports into kind of like in the browser already now. So it's not as much of a thing anymore. So there's just 3 main parts now. All right, so we have custom elements, the shadow DOM, and HTML templates. Now you can use these separately, but together they help make what a web component is. All right, so custom elements. That is the actual naming. So you saw how like I had Dwayne-timer or Dwayne-made, or we saw like that pop-up, like pop over, there's like pop over component or whatever it was. I have a short-term memory. But yeah, it is the naming of your web component. And so the thing is, it must include a hyphen or a dash. That's called like kebab case. You can't use single words because then you'd have people recreating like the H1 tag, or like we had the video tag or any other tag. So by by making sure that you have to have a like a hyphen or a dash, that makes it less confusing for other people. So you can see, and for the browser, because the browser be like, hey, I know what this H1 tag is before, but then now this other thing's telling me about this other thing. It get confusing, as you can probably tell. And so you have to have a hyphen. All right. It could be multiple hyphens. Like you could have, a few hyphens, but at least one hyphen. So no single words, basically. And then, so what happens is with the Custom Elements API, you're taking that name that you created and you're kind of attaching it to an object that defines the behavior of your web component. And we're going to see that in an example. And then, as you tell with that like expanding UL list from before, you build them off of existing HTML elements. So like if you want to create your own video player, then there's like the HTML element video, I think it is, or the HTML element H1 tag, or the A ref tag, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? There's all these different ones there. A lot of times we'll base them off of just the base HTML elements. So that kind of covers everything. But if you want to get more specific, you can start building from that specific element and on top of that. But a lot of times you'll see just a base HTML element, and we'll see that in an example. All right. And then the shadow DOM, that by what Paul Lewis, and I have a link to the video, calls it, it contains the gross. So it provides encapsulation for the logic of your web component. So it doesn't like leak out into the outer application. So like the styling and the logic, like I said, all contained within your web component. And you can let the application know what's happening inside of there, and even with the color, like styling also, but like it doesn't have to unless you want it to. So it provides, so it's like secure by default kind of thing. So everything is within your web component to start off with. And what's cool, like I said, one of the cool things about the Shadow DOM API is that, so a click within your web component may not make sense to the outer application, right? So let's say there's a button in your web component and click. Instead of let's say it's a voting web component, right? And you want to be able to like vote for something in your web component. To let the outer application know, instead of listening just for a regular click in your web component, you could turn that click into something more meaningful. So something like voted, so that the outer application can listen for the event voted instead of just a random click within your web component. Because you could have a bunch of different buttons, you know what I'm saying? Whereas this way, when somebody clicked vote, when they voted, the outer application can know what to do with that, right? So there's that. And then also I have a link to the MDN so you can read more about it. And it's kind of cool. And there's the HTML template, which you can just use anyway, but the template tag, which is another cool HTML tag, it kind of like lets you set up like a structure of some sort of HTML like section, right? So it's your web components like content. And what's cool about the template tag is that it's pretty much ignored by the browser. So you can have your like structure of a thing that you want to show up. So let's say it could be, I don't know, like a section. So you have like section, the HTML element section within the template tags, and you could have like, maybe it's to show like a summary or what have you that you don't want to show yet, because maybe you want to put some information in there depending on what the user has done, right? And so you can set up the structure the way you want. So you have like the section, maybe like H1, and the side, maybe a main section. You set all that up in the template tag. Then that's gonna be ignored by the browser. And so what happens is in your code, you're gonna use like JavaScript or what have you to be able to clone that template, put in what you want, and then show it on the page. And so, like I said there in the second bullet point, is used to efficiently render HTML and update it when the user interacts with our web components. And just at any time, you could use it for, you don't have to use it for web components, but it helps with the building of web components. And then sometimes if it gets super complex, because we're developers, we make things super complex. And there's like libraries and frameworks that can be used to help make that a little bit easier to use. And so we'll see some of that as well. So that is the HTML templates API. So spoke about the things that use to create a web component. Let's see that in action. So it's real quick. I guess in the question section, again, there's probably not a lot of folks in here, but I created this example, and it's just kind of to show the different parts of like a vanilla web component. And so I normally ask, like, anybody wants to say, like, who's the greatest group of all time? Now, Eris may say, like, run DMC. So let's say run DMC, right? So notice there's an H1 tag here asking the question, who's the greatest group of all time? We have an input box where you put in like the guess. And then we have a button for the submitting of the guess. And then we have a little thinking face emoji here. All right. So let's say run DMC. Now notice like a little pop-up shows like an alert box. And it says nope. You click OK. And then this section pops up here where it says run DMC, question mark, exclamation point. And then they're okay, I guess. All right. I know Eris is probably quite angry with me. Now
the roots are the best. The roots are the best group of all
that's
time.
right. The roots. You like the roots? Yes, that's right. So let's try the roots. And so you press that. Oh nope. You click OK, and then so notice this changed. So the roots, they're okay, I guess. All right. Now we all know the greatest group of all time is Outcast. And so you click that, and it says yup in the alert box. You click OK, and you notice again this changes. So Outcast, exclamation points, because that's the way you say Outcast, is very excitingly. And then it says you're right. So you notice that changed. And it also this is going to show up in the code, but you can click this, and you see it turned red. Right? All right. So that's the example. So let me rerun it to kind of reset everything. So let's take a look at the HTML quickly. So you can see here the title goat group. So it would show up this was in its own window. The title would show up, say goat group, greatest of all time, just in case. It's not like a animal thing. And then so here's the H1 with the who's the greatest group of all time there. And it's green because in our CSS, you see H1 color green. All right. So that's going to be important. H1, the color is green in the outer application. Then we have the input here. Then we also have the button. Now you see we have this other thing, goat-group. That's not a regular HTML element, right? You haven't seen that anywhere before, right? So then we have that element here. You see an attribute, guess. Right now we have it set it to like nothing, null, basically. So it's like an empty space, not even a space. It's just two quotes. Then we have the thinking face, which is right here. That's going to be important. I'm going to show that later. So as I wanted to put something, because I wanted to show that you can put something in between the tags of your custom elements of your web component, and we'll see where that goes. And so then we have the closing tag goat group. All right, so that's the HTML. Cool, pretty clean. You know what I'm saying? Not too bad. That's another thing with web components. It can make your markup really clean. We saw the CSS, where it's just pretty much this H1 color green. And then, also, fonts, they go into, they cross the shadow DOM. That's another thing. So I have that note here. Notice how the font crosses the shadow DOM boundary. So that kind of helps with like consistency of your web components. Now, unless you actually set the font in your web component, then I think it will use whatever's in the web component. But as far as like, if you didn't set one, I normally never set the text in my web components or just at all, but it will carry through. So there's that. Yeah. All right, so now let's talk about the JavaScript stuff that makes all this kind of like work. So I like to start off by getting like references to all the elements. So I always do that at the top. And so we have some light DOM stuff, right? So that the light DOM is what's happening in your outer application. Then we have the shadow DOM, which is kind of like a little parallel universe that's happening with inside of your web component. All right. And so, so we have the submit button. I'm getting a reference to that, to the button itself. And then here you see goat group element. And just like with the input and the submit button, since it's all just regular web stuff anyway, you can get a reference to it by doing a query selector or get element ID or whatever. But I just want to show that you do goat -group and get a reference to the element that you can use later on in your JavaScript. And so now I'm adding an event listener to the a click event listener to the submit button. I'm sure we've probably done that a bunch of times, right? And then what's different here, though, is that I'm setting an attribute on that goat group element that we got a reference to. And see, I'm setting the attribute guess. Remember, guess showed up right here as an attribute of our web component. And so I'm setting that attribute to be the submit value that comes up with it. So when you click the add event list, when you click the button, right? I have a console log here. I wish there was a way to make this longer because it makes the thing spacey kind of weird. But so when you click the button, I have a console log, but I'm also setting the attribute of our web component to be the value that's in the input box. So that's what's happening here. And then I'm just clearing out the input box. All right. So now this, remember with the Shadow DOM API, we can remap events that happen within our web component, right? So that's what I'm doing here. So on the window, I'm adding an event listener for guest. And that's going to come from our web component. And that's why you see here the alerts with the E detail, the event detail, that what causes the alert box to show up. And so there's an event listener and it's listening for guest. Guest is not a normal event. It's not like click or submit or anything like that. That's something that we're going to create. So that's the remapping of the events from our web component so that the outer application can listen for a certain thing that is more meaningful, right? Because this is a guessing thing. So once a guess has been made, we can remap that event to be like, oh, hey, the outer application like, oh, a guess has been made. And so then you can react like by showing an alert box. All right. So now here's the same template thing. The template tag we were talking about before. I'm doing it in JavaScript here, but I could have also just put like a template tag in the HTML. But I was in the JavaScript, so I was like, I might as well do it in the JavaScript. So so we're creating an element template, right? So a template tag basically. And then within that template tag, we're setting the inner HTML to be, so here, slot. And slot is just another HTML element. But what's cool in terms of web components, remember the thinking face emoji that's inside of our web component right here between the tags? That shows up wherever slot is. And so now we have, if you have, you can have multiple ones. So you could have like different tags within your web component tags. And then we have things called named slots. So you can actually name them and they'll show up wherever you want in the web component, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so but right now we only have one thing. And so that's why it shows up there. Then we have that H1 tag when the guess was made. So the roots. So again, listening for the guest. And so here's that H1 tag right here. And then we have the verdict. We have a div with the ID of verdict, right? And that's what this is. They're okay, I guess. All right, so that is the structure of our web component. All the HTML stuff inside of it, all right? So now we're getting into the custom API part. So we kind of went over the shadow DOM part with the guest part here. Then we kind of talk about the template element here. Now let's talk about the custom elements API. All right. And so now, like I said, it's a class object that helps define your the behavior, like what your web component does, right? And so we're extending an HTML element, kind of like the base class. So it kind of is covering everything. It's like the umbrella one. So it covers everything else. But if you wanted to, you could have like an input. You could extend a button or like a video or whatever class that you want. So now we want to observe certain attributes like our guests, because again, remember, that's what we're going to change so that when this input button is clicked, that is what's we're going to update the guests, right? And so in order to observe it, we have to do this observed attributes. And then you're returning an array of strings of the attributes. And so here's our guess. So that's why that's there. And again, this the spacing is kind of strange, but this is for that one. That closing brackets for that one, not for the element. And then if anybody's ever done anything with like classes before, I'm sure you probably run into the constructor, and that kind of like sets everything up in your like your initial setup, right, for your class. And so you may also be familiar with the super, because you always, like right after constructor, it's always good practice to put your super right after that. And so that gets all like the HTML element, that base class, gets all like the goodness, what I call goodness. So it's like all the methods and properties that come along with it. So that gives your element like that whole, all the stuff from that base element there. And then here we're going to clone, because remember, like I said before, you clone the template using JavaScript. And so that's what we're doing here. So we're taking the content of the template and we're importing it into the document. All right. And then now using the shadow DOM, we're attaching it to our element. Right. And so it should, oh yeah. So this in the mode open, because it gives you the open or closed. Right. And so I have like a little note here. The mode tells whether or not the shadow root, like the internal stuff, should be accessible outside in the outer application. Like if we had a method that we wanted to call from the outer application that's in our web component, whether or not we can make that be possible. And that's what mode does. So if there is something, and we'll see that later on, that there's situations where we want the outer application to be able to call a method within or to set something within our web component, right? And that mode decides whether or not we let that happen. All right, so there's some control you get over that, which is pretty cool. And then we're just attaching the clone template to the shadow roots. All right, and then we have this event listener. So we're in the same way like you would add the event listener to a element, we're adding it to the shadow DOM, like our web component. And so that whenever there's a click, the style, the color is going to turn red. And so that's why when we click the roots, it turns red, or anything in here, pretty much, it turns red. So that's what that's doing there. All right. Now, like with a lot of elements, like if you're familiar with like React or Vue or Angular or what have you, you have like life cycles. So certain parts that happen during a web component's life. So there's all these different things that happen. So the first one is a connected callback. And so that happens when your custom element, your web component, is placed into the DOM of your application, right? And if you have multiple times, so if I had goat-group a bunch of times in this, each time that I have it, it will launch this connected callback, because that is when is being added to your outer application's DOM, right? And so that can be called a bunch of times. So be careful of that, just, you know, a little note there. Now we have the attribute change callback. So in our case, guess. When that changes, this life cycle happens. All right. And so we have the name, which would be guess, the old value, what it was previously before the change, and then the new value. And so I like console logs whenever I'm building stuff to kind of see what's happening. And so it'll say like attribute change, the name and the new value. And then if the new value, if I trim it, if I took out all the spaces and it's nothing, don't do anything basically. So like the inner text would be nothing. Let's see. Oh yeah, else if there is, so this is like where the logic is happening, okay? And so because our web component kind of does stuff when the guess changed, like when somebody guesses, right? And so I have the logic in that. And so you see right here, so if you put nothing in there, like see how that went away, the verdict. And so again, the query selector, remember that div with ID verdict, right? So I wanted to show that you could do like this dot shadow root, and you could do query selector on that. Or I could probably, I know I could also put like, what is it? Get element by ID. I could have done that there, but I like query selector because you can do IDs or classes all in the same thing. So it's a personal preference, but you could do whatever you normally use to select an element, you can do that here. I wanted to show that. It's just that now it's on the shadow root because it's within our web component. I'm just saying the inner text to be nothing. And that's why it went away, because the guess was nothing. So that's how I'm checking to see if it was an empty guess by trimming out any spaces. And if I get nothing left, then I know that there was no guess. That's what that's doing. All right. So now else. So if it's not that, that means there's some sort of guess that's happening, right? So I put everything to lowercase. And again, it's the new value, which is what we're changing the guess to. Remember, because like when you click submit, you're changing the value. Remember, I set the attributes to that guess, which was happening up here. This doesn't have line numbers. Okay, never mind. But yeah, right here, where'd it go? Yeah, the set attribute. So this is actually launching that on attribute change lifecycle hook, the callback. All right, cool. If you have any questions also, feel free to ask in the questions. That's what we're here for. All right, but I want to make sure, since there aren't any questions, I want to be as explicit as possible. All right, so we checked if there's any sort of like guess. Now, if there is a guess, we're going to set it to lowercase. And if it's outcast, then we're going to set the h1 tag, again, in our template that we've cloned to our shadow root. So the same thing, query selector, h1 of our tag. And we're setting the inner text of that to be all caps with exclamation point. So that's why when we put outcast, that happens. Okay. And then, yeah. So then we're setting the verdict again to be your right, which shows up here. And I could have like set these as variables and reuse them, but I kind of wanted to show that, hey, again, this is how you select your different things just regularly. All right. So I could have set up like, hey, const equals this dot shadow root query selector verdict to be like verdict element or something. Cool. All right. So now else, otherwise, so if it's not empty and if it's not outcast, then it's a wrong guess, basically. And again, wrong in, I'm just joking. It's all personal preference. And so here I am setting the same h1. So let's say again, the roots, we have to rub it in errors. So I'm setting it here with the question mark, exclamation point. That's what this is doing here. And then I'm again setting the verdict to being they're okay, I guess. And you can see here now, I'm dispatching as we're here with the other one, with the outcast one. So I'm dispatching a new event. So it's a new custom event. And so it's called guest. So I'm taking the changing of the attributes value to be able to remap that event into something that the outer application can listen for and is more meaningful. So instead of just listening for like a change or what have you, because the outer application is like, okay, cool, change, but what does that mean? You know what I mean? So you're letting the outer application know that, oh, a guest has happened. So guest. So I have a custom event guest. And then you see here the detail of that custom event is yup. And then there's another one with bubbles is another like thing that you can send along with it. And that lets it bubble up through your component and into the outer application. So if this was like buried within a bunch of like other nested things, you can have it like go through the chain and go into the outer application. That's what bubble does. And then to actually go into the outer application, we have this composed, and you can set that to be true. If it's false, it'll just stay within your application. Yeah, so that's what this is doing. So that is the Shadow DOM API when I said about the remapping of the events. And then so here's the guest. And then like we said, we did before, on the window, we're setting an event listener guest. And that is what allows the alert box to pop up. All right, hopefully that was cool. All right, yeah, and then we have this disconnected callback. So if it's ever removed from the application, your web component, this will fire. And so it's cool because it helps with like, because sometimes you get memory issues. I don't know if you've ever done like a set interval or what have you, and you like have a bunch of them, and then your application gets very slow because it's like a memory leak. So with this helped kind of clean stuff up. So this is where you'd put like remove event listeners or removing any sort of like set timeouts or anything like that. So yeah, it helps prevent like any memory leaks. Yeah, and then here, we're actually, this is part of the custom elements API. So we have all this logic that we just did in this class that describes the behavior of our web component, right? And so that we have the actual behavior of our thing within that class object. And so now what we need to do is assign it to our class, our web component's name. And so we're defining that here. So we have the goat-group, which is what we're calling our web component in the actual structure of the HTML. And then we're giving its behavior with this class, the goat group, which is up here. So right there, that's the name of our class. All right, so yeah, so that's what we have there. So that is a regular, oh, also I want to show, notice that when I click this, let me rerun this. So outcast. So yep. Notice that this is blue first, right? And we set that here. Where are you? We set it to blue right here. So on the connected callback, when it's loaded into the actual DOM of our application, the color is blue, right? But then we had this click right here, this event listener for click to turn it red, right? Now this is an H1, right? That we set up in our template. This is an H1. And so when we click it, it turned everything red. But remember that this was also the title, who's the greatest group of all time. That's also an H1 tag. But notice it didn't change when that click happened in here. And that's part of the encapsulation of with the shadow DOM. So anything that happened here with like changing colors or what have you, unless you want it to, it doesn't leak out into the outer application. So yeah, so there's that. I probably went super deep into this example, but I wanted to make sure everything was cool with it. All right. So kind of here's how it kind of works. So this outer part is your user's application. Then you have your web component here in the black box. So it's because it's kind of like a black box, right? And so all your logic and everything happens within your custom elements. So it's kind of like a black box. So from the outer application, you pass in properties and attributes into your web component. And then we have custom events that come out of it, like our guest, right? And then if we wanted to, remember, we can call methods from the outer application on our web component to do stuff as well. So we can make our web component do things by calling methods from the outside outer application. All right, so that's kind of like a diagram of how things kind of work. So now our web component is still cool. And again, I'll just give it like 10 seconds for the video to catch up, or like, I'm not sure how many people are actually here. Let me check. So I know there's the Zoom. Let me see. Anything happening here? Let me check the chat. All right, cool. Nothing there. All
I
right.
just
Okay, cool.
replied.
Nice, nice. Thank you. All right. So yeah, so let's keep on going then. So still cool, very much. Thank you very much. All right, so now let's talk about some of the tools, because you saw those kind of like a lot of boilerplate, right? In making just that very like doesn't do a lot web component, but a lot of code to make that little bit happen, right? So there's various tools and frameworks to help make that a little bit easier. So as with anything on the web, there's like a million ways to do stuff, right? And so as far as web components, webcomponents.dev, they kind of like go through and put all the different ways of creating web components in one place. And they make it to where it's like a one-click to try something. It only takes like one click. So you can kind of see everything there. So it's pretty cool. So webcomponents.dev, cool website. Not only can you play around with web components, we can also push code. So you can actually like build your web components and push it to like GitHub so you can check it out later. You can actually publish, and we're going to do this. We're going to publish our web component so that other people can use it in their applications. And then you can deploy actual full websites like GitHub pages through webcomponents.dev. Pretty cool stuff. So let's take a look at the website. Let me close some of this other stuff that we have here. All right, so here's the website itself. And then normally I'll say like, guess how many like different ways there are of like creating web components right now. But as of this broadcast, there's like 64 templates at least in webcomponents.dev. There's probably more because I think I ran into some other ones, but they haven't been added here yet. But you can see here, remember we mentioned with Salesforce, the LWC, the Lightning Web Components, they have it here. So you can check it out, how to create it there. You can create it with Preact. Here's the regular no dependency HTML element like that we just did before. Lit, this is coming from Google. You may have heard of Polymer before. If you're ever into web components before, Polymer has turned into Lit, pretty much. Here's Fast, which I think comes from Microsoft, if I'm not mistaken. So Microsoft has their own. Haunted is one I've heard before. You can create web components with Svelte. And then Stencil, from the good folks over at Ionic, they created their own set of like because, okay, if you're not familiar with Ionic, Ionic allows you to create projects that are be able to be used like in like mobile applications as well. So you can kind of like, you're able to create like one application and use it in a bunch of different places. So they were doing all these components for that, and they decided to create the same tool that they're using. They, I guess, kind of like let it out for everybody to see, and that's what Stencil is. And so that's another one. I've used Stencil quite a bit before. And so yeah, so I've used Stencil. I haven't played with Fast yet. And there's also Lit HTML. But if you want to take a look at all the different templates. So now you notice some say JavaScript, right? Some also say, oh, they have like Tailwind and all sorts of stuff. Some say like TypeScript. So if you're a TypeScript fan, you can do that as well. So there's all sorts of different ways of being able to create web components. SlimJS is another one I've heard of before. I think I've heard of Smart Elements. Oh, and that's funny, Swiss, because like I said before, web components are kind of like the Swiss Army knife. And so that's cool. You see that there. But yeah, there's so many different ways. All right. So that's cool. So now let's take a look at what we're going to be building. So when you click on one of them, like to create a web component, this is what you'll see. So this is just the plain one, the plain element, HTML element one with zero dependency that we showed before. And to kind of show the differences between the different ways of making them, they'll all show like a counter. Because the counter is cool because you have like, by clicking these buttons, you're affecting the value that's being changed here. So it's kind of like showing interactivity within the web component. So that's kind of like a good starting case to show for an example, right? So it's kind of like the hello world of web components. And so you can see here, so we're doing the same thing we did before, like we're creating the template elements, all right? And we're setting the inner HTML. And so here they're actually applying the style. And then here is the framework of the actual web component. So you can see we have a button here, and with the ID of DEC, which is for decrement, with a minus. Then we have the count here, and then we have another button. That's its ID is INC for increment. All right, and then so that's setting up the structure. That's what's happening there. All right. Then here is the logic. So here's the class called myCounter, and it extends the HTML element base class, right? And then again, we have the constructor, we have the super, and then we're setting the initial value of the count to be 0. That's why it was 0 when we started. And then here we're attaching this shadow DOM and the mode open. We've seen that before. Then we have when it's added to the DOM, you see the connected callback, right? Does it show like a little pop-up? I thought it showed something. Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. It kind of like explains the stuff here also, which is pretty cool. All right. Yeah, so it returns element shadow root, if any, and if the shadow root's mode is open and null otherwise. So if you don't put anything there, it's going to be null. All right. So yeah. So now we're appending the shadow root, right? So we're cloning the template like we did before. Let's see. What just popped up there? Okay, cool. So yeah, so it returns a copy of the node. If deep is true, which is the true there, the copy also includes the node's descendants. So anything like underneath that, it's like a deep copy. So like if you ever like want to like delete files with like folders within files within folders within folders within folders, you have like the recursive thing. It's kind of like that. So it'll show all that stuff there. That's what that does. All right, cool. So we're appending it, and then so you see they did the get element by ID, whereas I like to do query selector. But again, it's whatever you want. And so they're adding the event listener by doing the on click. I did add event listener, again, personal preference. And then it's giving what happens when you do that. So it fires this function. And same thing for decrement. And then this update the count. All right, so that's what all this is doing. And then, so this update the count, which is 0 from here. So that's why it was 0 there. So when it loads, it's setting up the template and it's setting up the functions when you click them and the value of it. All right. So now here are the functions that are being called. So inc, increment, and decrement. And you can see this also calling the update function, which is here, and it's passing in the count. So whereas the increment is adding 1 to the count and decrement is subtracting 1. So that's what's going into here. So this is the count. So that's what's there. And then you can see here, it's doing the same get element by ID of count, which again was in our template here, ID of count. And it's setting the inner HTML. It is an inner text as well, and it's setting to that value count. All right. And so there's that. And then here we're ending it off with the same custom elements where we're the name, the myCounter, and the behavior. So we're attaching the behavior to the name. So that way, when the browser comes across it, it knows what to do with because my-counter isn't a regular element. So what happens is the browser's like, well, I don't know what to do with this. Oh, it's attached to this behavior, this class through the JavaScript. Oh, now I know what to do with it. All right, so yeah, that's pretty much that. And then I have a link to the project. You can check it out as well. So that's that. All right, next. Now, like you just saw, there's at least 64 ways of creating web components. Now, let's say you're on a team and you're building an application and you want to use web components. Well, sometimes you may have people like, oh, I like using lit, or I like using fast, or I like using stencil. And then you have people using different ways of creating web components. The end output is the web component, which is great. But the thing is, if somebody else wants to look at what another web component did, they may not be familiar because they're using something else. So it could cause some confusion, right? So to kind of stop all that, there's open web components. And so this website, I have a link there. Let's check it out. What they're doing is they're kind of like saying, hey, to kind of remove all that, to remove the choice, like here's a set of things, guidelines that you can follow so that everybody's on the same page, right? And so here, so yeah, like see, they have the guides. So open web components provide guides, tools, and libraries for developing web components. So that way it takes all like, it removes the, I forgot what they call it, like the something of choice. Because sometimes you get into like analysis paralysis, where like, oh, there's so much. Or maybe like there's so many choices, like you don't know what to pick, or people are picking different things and it gets all disjointed. And so open web components is like, hey, here's a set of guidelines, here's what you do. All right. So there's no more like, they put you like on these guide rails of what to do. And so it's a cool website. You can see, oh, div riots are the same folks who make webcomponents.dev. And so you can see they're also supporting it, which is pretty cool. All right. So guidelines, some of the guides. So getting started, going build lists, like using all like the latest browser features, how to test them, even like provide examples, like code labs that you can like walk through so that you can kind of like onboard everybody that's making the web components for your application. They have examples and how to publish it. And we're going to show publishing also, because you want to be able to put your web components somewhere that somebody else can use for their project. Or you can have it in your own closed off environment as well. So you get choices. What do you want to do with it? You get control, full control of what do you want to do with it. And what's cool is they provide a like a CLI command, a CLI tool that it will step you through creating a web component. And it will give you an example web component with all like the folder structures and everything for you. So that way everybody on the team is using the same structure so that a person can go look at another web component and know where everything is within the folder structure. So that's pretty cool. So it's cool for that. So a lot of times there's a scaffold, like a web component. I'll use like OpenWC and just to get it working or what have you. And they give you like different tools. And then like, there's a community. And it's pretty cool. And so they use Lit Element to build out their web components. And so, yeah, so they take that option for you and like, hey, we're using Lit Element. Everybody's gonna be on the same page. All right, cool. So that is what they do. Super cool project. And yeah. So if you ever need a use case, it's there. So that's pretty cool. All right, now we spoke about publishing. So now you created your web component, cool. But now how can another application use that web component, right? So what you can do is you can package your web component and publish it to a place like npm.js.com. And so if you've ever like npm installed anything, it's pulling it from here. And so this is why I was asking about if anybody has like a GitHub account, because you can sign in. Well, no, wait, I got that wrong. This, you create an account on npm, right? But to publish, we'll show that soon, because like the examples, if you ever want to like remix them themselves, you need GitHub. So that's what that is. But here, you'd have to sign up for an account. You won't need it for this one because the applications you use, you'll sign up through your, they have their own, and then you'll be able to publish it through theirs. But we'll see that later. That's a little peek into the future. All right, but yeah, you can sign up here, and this will like, you can publish your stuff here, and then it'll give you like an npm I whatever, and so that way you can npm install it into another application. So that's what npm does. Pretty cool. So now, let's say, what if you can't npm install into a place, right? Let's say like Codepen. You can't npm install in Codepen, right? So maybe you have some sort of a similar environment. Well, that's where content delivery networks come into play. So like, or for short, CDNs. And so what they'll do is, what some of them do, they basically clone what's on npm, and they kind of like host your code for you so that you can call directly to them instead of installing it into your local application. You can call it from there to use in your application. And we're going to show that coming up soon. So some of them are JS Deliver, Skypack.dev, and unpackage.com. And so those are some of those. I think there may be more since I've put this together, but yeah. So those are like the three that I've come across the most. So let's build something. All right, we talked all this theoretical stuff, and we kind of showed a brief example, like a vanilla JavaScript one, but let's actually build something. And so what we're going to build is this keypad element that I created actually for, again, I work at Vonage. And so I was like, hey, it'd be cool to be able to build like a keypad element, because with communications, a lot of times you may need a keypad. So let's say you create an application to dial a phone number. So you'll be able to use the keypad element to dial a phone number. Or maybe you're using it to enter in a code, maybe for like our verify, which is like a two-factor authentication. So maybe you want to enter in a code. So you could use a keypad for that as well. Or maybe you're selecting an answer. Let's say it's a quiz application and you're selecting an answer. You could use a keypad element for that, right? Or like even like a little gamepad or to move things around, you can use a keypad element. So I was like, instead of having to recreate that all the time over and over again, like setting up the buttons and event listeners on buttons, and then what happens when you click a button, all instead of doing that over and over again, might as well just package that all up into a Vonage component keypad. That's what we have there. And so to create it, we scaffold using OpenWC, which we just saw, and OpenWC uses lit for like to create the web component, right? And so there's different properties and attributes that you can pass into the VC keypad. So there's like the placeholder. So that's what shows up when there's nothing in there. I don't have anything for that there now. It's nothing by default. The keys, you can change the keys on these buttons to what you want. The action text is what shows up in this, the enter button. The cancel text is when you want to stop whatever is happening. That shows up there. There's like, if you want to remove the asterisk, like this asterisk button, that's a Boolean. So if it's there, if you say like no asterisk, then it won't show it. Same thing for the hash key or the pound sign and the display. So you're able to just get rid of those. And then remember, we're talking about you can call methods on there. So let's say the keypad, let's say you enter in something, right? The outer application can say, oh, something was entered. So now we want to call this method create action on the keypad. So that what that basically does, it changes this action text to like the cancel text to where you can stop, if you wanted to stop whatever is happening. You see what I'm saying? So let's say you put in a number, let's say to dial a phone number. You click enter, then you can, it sends a custom event called actions or digits sent, right? So okay, I'm getting ahead of myself again. So we have the custom events. So there's a method you can call, right, to create action. The custom events that are coming out of the web component are digits added, digits sent, and action ended. So digit added is fired every time there's one of these things are clicked, these buttons, right? Cool. Digit sent is when this enter button is clicked. So that kind of like creates the action. That lets you know that, hey, whatever you needed to be done with these codes has been kind of sent. And then what you do with that is what the outer application sees. So it sees these digits. And if you wanted more to happen, like if it's doing something else, you can call the create action so that while it's doing stuff, like say like dialing a phone number, you can have it turn into the cancel section so that when you click that, it'll send the action ended to let you know, okay, now it's over, kind of thing. And I think we do that, well, depending on what you all want. All right, cool. So here, again, is the user's application, so like the outer. And so we have the properties going in, so like the keys, the placeholder, all that stuff, going into our VC-keypad. Then we have the custom events that come out of it, so like digit added, digit sent, and the action ended. And then we have the methods, which was like the create action that we can call from the outer application onto it. Cool. So now again, for references, you can check out the OpenWC, which you saw before, and lit. Lit is pretty cool. How much time do we have left? Okay, we got a little bit of time. Okay, so lit, stop it. All right, cool. So lit Hey, Eris, how much time do we have left? I think I've been, we're almost like to the end, right? I think we have
Okay,
until like 30,
yeah,
to like 3, right? It's like a 2-hour thing.
yeah, unlimited for you, unlimited.
Oh, okay, cool, awesome. Well, I don't want to take up too much time. So, okay, so here's lit. It's pretty cool. It's what is used to build see simple, fast web components. So skip the boilerplate, tiny. It's like 5 kilobytes, the library to do it, and it's pretty cool. All right, so there's that. So I have links to that. You can check it out more. And they have like things you can like actually play with stuff. And it's a cool thing. All right, so yeah, there's that. NPM, close that. Here's OpenWC. So again, I link out to things that you could check out for yourself. All right, so here is like the web component code, and this is from a previous thing. Hold on. How do I close this out? There we go. All right. Oh yeah, this changed from before. Hold on. Let me change this back. It's not gonna let me do it, is it? Because I'm not logged into this one. Okay, link to project. So let's take a look. You'll be able to link to the project here. Am I not signed into GitHub on here? I am not signed in. That would be why that is all messed up. Let me sign into GitHub. So here, this is where I was saying, like, if you have GitHub, you can sign in with GitHub. Sign in. I need to open it. Okay, give me a second. I think it kicked me out of GitHub since the last time I've actually worked on this. I've done this. Let's see here. And so super secure. So of course, I have like 2-factor authentication, which I have to open up here. Hopefully I can do it in time. I didn't do it in time. All right. All right, cool. Continue. Great. Okay, I'm signed in. Okay, awesome. So while that's loading, let me fix this back. I changed this for a previous thing. Where is it here? So this is what okay. Wait, what? Oh, wait, what? Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. So that's how it's supposed to look originally. All right, cool. There it is. It updated there too. All right. What I should have done, I think I messed this up before. So what we can do is, since I own this project, I was able to change that. But what you'd have to do is click duplicate. So let's do duplicate. So that's kind of like forking the project so that you have your own thing going on. So you can do that. And so here it is. So this is using lit. And so you see it has a lit element there. So that's the base class. So lit, what it does, it has its own way of like creating web components. And so in order to use its like tooling and everything and the way it has things set up, you extend from the lit element. Whereas before we were extending from the base HTML element. All right, so we have the name. So this is the actual behavior. So it's the class, VC Keypad. All right, and then we have some styling here. And then this is what I did last time. So give me a color so that we can show that throughout when we use this, that it's changed. So let me get a color. Anybody? Eris, you there? Let me get a color. We're gonna go with green. Let's say green. All right, so what is green? I don't know what green is. I think I just typed in here.
I'm typing.
Oh, yeah.
Do I have to type a number?
Oh, no, you don't have to. Like, you can put in anything, but green is not the greatest of colors. You know, I can also
Okay,
change
one
the
second.
background.
Because I'm flipping between
Oh,
the
no,
screen.
this is for everybody. Like, when you create your own, you can make it whatever you want. So I'm
Okay.
going to make this. You know what? Let me make the background here white. And so this comes up a little bit. So, okay, cool. So again, I just want to kind of show this because when we go through other examples, when we create it, I want to show that we're using the same thing here. All right, so I changed it. Cool. Here we go. Now, so that is the base element. So again, you can check out the code. It's similar to what we did before. What's cool now, so yeah, here's the constructor, super, setting all the initial values for everything. So like you see, there's the asterisk, the hashtag, if you don't want to display them, all these things I'm setting defaults because I want to show them by default. The same enter tag here, cancel, all that good stuff, right? Then here's the add digit, display blur. So there's a bunch of different logic, all right? And then you notice here, the way they do their templating is similar to like React or what have you, or I think even like Vue. And I think no, Angular is a little bit different, but it's just you're returning the structure here. And so it looks similar. You kind of like put it out here. And then within each one, they have like the click. This is how you add the click event listener. Yeah, but you can check out the lit site for more information about that. All right, but I just wanted to show, here's our component. We changed it up a little bit so you can see it when we show it in other stuff. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to publish it. I'm sorry?
Sorry.
I think your mic's on.
Yeah.
You're saying something?
No. Ignore me.
Okay. All right, so here's our web component, right? Now we want to publish it, right? So we're going to publish it. And webcomponents.dev, this is webcomponents.dev, by the way. And they allow us to be able to publish it. And so what happens is it will publish under their NPM account. All right. So what we do here is we click the little box here, see publish to NPM. Then we're gonna do a release. And so let's say it's a patch, what have you. I mean, because they give you like minor, major, which is pretty cool, but we're just gonna roll with a patch. And then you can see right here because it changed. So patch, minor, and major. If you're ever wondering like what those values ever meant. So let's do a major release. It's our first one, might as well. And if you have here, see what's cool is you can include the sources, typings, all this stuff, the scope, all these things. Don't really need to worry about that now, but you can play around with it more. And so this, you can see it's going to be at WCD, webcomponents.dev. And then this is the name of the project. So it has my username with a VC keypad workshop. So it's kind of a way of distinguishing all the different web components from each other. And so it's namespaced. So the at WCD is namespacing so that when somebody installs, because naming things are hard and people would probably come up with the same thing. So like, that's why mine is like Dwayne hyphen whatever. So that way, but somebody else's name could be spelt the same way. So they might have had the same idea and called it the same thing, right? Or maybe like there's another VC hyphen keypad. Well, by doing the name spacing, we let people know like, no, this is from us. Like this is mine. And so they know like, oh, okay, they can differentiate between them. All right. So we're gonna release this. So it's creating the release now. And then while it's doing that, okay, oh, there it goes, done, nice. So here it is. Open up. Okay, wait, no. Come on, what happened? Wait, go back. Go back. Okay, hold on. Let me do this again. Of course. Let's see here. I think I did it too quickly. So hold on. I need to go back to the one I created. I can do that through here. Look at my dashboard. This one's the one we just created. All right, we're back. Here it is. Okay. It takes a second for things to kind of like show up. So this link here, the little box, open that in a new tab. So this is going to npm.js.com. And so here it is. So you can see it was last published a few seconds ago. So this is the actual web component that we just created. See, it has the npm I with the link to the web component. All right, cool. It has one dependency, which is yet the lit elements. All right, there's been one version. Nobody's been using it because we just created it. All right, so there's that. All right, cool. So now let's use it. So here is Codepen. Now remember, like I was saying before, sometimes in some environments, you're not able to do that whole npm install, right? But you still want to be able to use your web components. And so we're going to use a CDN to showcase that right here. And so we're going to have the unpackage, and let me copy and paste. So where it says replace here, you're going to put that same @wcd / whatever else. So pretty much basically like the npm install part, but I'm going to copy it here because it's easier. All right, so then I'm going to place that here. So wherever this says replace here, place it with that. I don't think there's a save thing. Oh, what? No. So bam, you see it popped up. Cool. So yes, that's kind of amazing. Like it's pulling from unpackage our web component that we just created, and it's placing it right there. That's kind of cool. All right. So then, but if you didn't do it, you can always uncomment this, and it'll put in one I had before. But this is the one we just did because you see I changed the background and the text color of that. And then then also see here the placeholder. I am setting that. So enter the number. That's why that showed up here. But we're to put like exclamation points. I really want people to enter in the number. See, it updated. Cool stuff. Now, that is using a CDN. That's all well and good. But what if we wanted to actually, we're in an environment such as StackBlitz. So this is stackblitz.com, another cool website if you want to like just kind of like create like projects and things, test things out. Let's say we wanted to actually install it, right? So we're just going to install it normally. So now what's cool is they have this thing here where it will actually you just enter in the package name and it'll do the npm I for you. So the package name again is the @wcd / whatever. And I'm going to put that in here. And don't worry if you don't have it because I have like a backup. So if you didn't do it yet or whatever. So yeah, so you see it's installing 1.0, which is what we just launched. Yes, Harris, or you want to say something or no? You're good?
No, I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, okay. My bad. All right. Cool. So now we need to go to index.js, and we're going to. So now what we could do is we're going to import our VC keypad that we just created, right? And so, or you can use mine or whatever, but we're just going to import, just like you would if you import. I still have it. And then save that. Bam, there you go. Okay, yes, thanks. Okay, cool, thank you. All right, cool. So yeah, so there you go. By installing it, so I showed how to install it just now, and then previously how to use a CDN. So that's pretty much it, and it still works the same. And then if I wanted to, see there is no placeholder there, so I could do placeholder equals text here. Exclamation point. There you go. And yeah, so that's that. Cool. Let's see what else. All right, so we talked about how to install them, how to create them. So now let's talk about this one we just created. Where do we want it to go?
I would say because tomorrow we're gonna do React. Is it tomorrow?
Well, the React one is kind of like building off of this one. So if you wanted to go React, I can show like the basic how it is now, because my talk is on like how it could be kind of thing.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And so
okay, let's do React.
React. All right, sounds cool. So yeah, so let's go to React. So now the thing is with the React, and it's probably also good to do this because if we go to custom elements everywhere.com, right? Custom elements everywhere.com, they run a bunch of tests on different frameworks and libraries to see how compatible they are with web components. And so, like they say, making sure frameworks and custom elements can be BFFs. So they kind of talk about stuff here. So now Vue, the newest Vue, it kind of went down a little bit because, and they tell you why. So they run a bunch of different tests, right? And they say like how well web components basically work with the framework. And so they'll say like any issue. So why it didn't get perfect this time? Because previously Vue 2, I think were perfect like across the board. But Vue 3, it does not support listening to custom events. Remember the thing coming out of our web components with capital letters. So if your custom event begins with a capital letter, in the new version of Vue 3, you won't be able to really work with it. You can work around it, but it's not out of the box like it was in Vue 2. For whatever reason, I don't know. When people make these things, I don't know their decision process. But yeah, so they basically test like the handling of data and the handling of events. So the data, how the framework handles the data going into your web component and how it handles the events coming out of your web component. All right. So you can see React, not the greatest. Now I'm gonna talk about this in my talk, the experimental branch, which has full support for web components, which is awesome. And you see like Angular is all good across the board. Angular JS, even like the 1.0 Angular is good. Svelte, which I'm a fan of. Preact, Polymer, which is the previous Lit. HyperApp, Skate, which we saw before, right? Which is also in the webcomponents.dev site. Omi was there. I think Mithril is there. So all these different things. Lit, Stencil again, HyperHTML, which I've used before. So all you see, like pretty much like it's supported a lot of places. Solid, which is a new one I haven't gotten a chance to play with it or anything. But yeah, you can see, yes, good support everywhere besides React, at least in the current state of React 18. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to put this into an actual React application. So you kind of show what it takes. Now the issue with React, again, it has issues with both handling data and handling events, right? So the way React, it handles data, like everything is like a string in React. And so it's cool if all you need for your web components are just strings. Like if it was just placeholder, fine, that's a string. But to do the keys, those are like, that's an array of strings. And the way React handles that is that it basically just makes a string of all the different elements of the array. Or worse yet, if let's say you had an object, the object turns into that terrible like object thing, which is never helpful for anybody. And so that's how it handles the actual data. Now events, the issue is that React doesn't have like the normal like event system. It has its own event system called, I think it's called synthetic events or something like that. And so trying to listen for events on the web component is difficult because of the way it handles it. It can be done with some workarounds, and we'll show that, but it doesn't come out of the box like other frameworks, and because it has its own synthetic event system. So what we're going to do is, so we have this here. I'm going to open the project. So I've been writing a series of blog posts. I have a link to that as well. Let's take a look at that real quick. On how to use web components in different frameworks. So I have a whole thing on how using web components in React. Like I go back to like older versions of React. And so I talk about all the different ways. Right now we're going to use a newer version of React, but I talk about all the different ways of doing it. And a lot of it's in the way you get the reference to your web component. And so we talk about all that stuff. So like, even from like when it was class, like base, now it's more functional and like using hooks and things. So I go through all of that. So it's like a complete thing, but we're just going to use hooks on this one. So yeah, so let me close this one out. So yeah, so I just basically opened a link to the project here, so you can check it out here. And let me fork it to make sure I don't overwrite other stuff. All right, so now, okay, thanks. So here is the basic thing here, right? So first thing we want to do is install our web component. Do I still have the same URL? Yep. So we're going to install the our web component. Cool. All right. It hasn't showed up yet because I need to import it. So import this. And bam, there we go. And again, you know it's out the one we just created because it has a white background, green text. All right. Cool. Oh, and then I have this other one, the contacts that shows up here. So this is basically what is being built in this application. So I called it React Rolodex. So in this series, we show building the keypad elements, and then I go into showing how to use it in different frameworks. And so each framework has like its own use case, because again, with web components, we have multi-uses, which is pretty cool. So what we're doing here is that it's called React Rolodex. And so this in the application that you can build through the blog post, you can use that number to dial a number. So let's say you're dialing, I don't know, in some place you can dial 1, 2, 3, and you can make a call. Again, see how this, it used to say enter by default, but we changed it to the placeholder to say call. So what that's doing is sending the event of actions started to the actual outer application. No, it sent the digit sent. That's what it was. Digit sent event to the outer application. So it knows like, oh, hey, this thing is happening. And then we're going to send back into the application the create action, which changed this to hang up because an action is happening, like a call is happening, right, in the outer application. So it's making a call. So it's being reflected into the web component that, hey, something is happening. And then when we're done, we can hang up. And that launches this little modal where if you want to save the name, so let's say we called Alice, we can confirm it. And then our application, let me move this over. So that other web component, the contacts web component, sets it now. So that's why that's showing up there. That was the contacts web component, and here is our keypad component. All right, cool. So that's that. So let's talk about the code now. Let me close this up here so we have some more room. So now it's a React application. So we're using useState here to set the state of the different things we want to kind of capture, like the different things that can change within our state, within our application. Then we also have, we're getting references to our keypad, the dialog element that pops up, the contacts web component, and the name, right, that we put in. Then we have the use effect. This is where we're setting up the listeners for the web components. So we have like our contacts one is listening for contacts loaded and contacts selected. That's coming from the actual contact element. Now, again, the way that React does its like synthetic like event system stuff. So that's why you have to have this current thing here, because I guess it changes in React. So you have to make sure you're on the current one so that it can like update properly. I guess that's what that means. And so pretty much the same thing for the keypad. You see we have the digits added, the digits sent, and the action ended. That's what happens when we click the call, the hang up button. You're sending it, and the action ended. All right. Cool. Okay. Then we're returning, because in React you have to remove the event listeners in the return of it. So that's what that's doing. So we're setting up the event listeners and we're removing them. That's what's happening in the use effect. All right. Cool. And then we have what happens. So when when the digits are sent, right? So once we do 1, 2, 3 call stuff, right? What happening is when we click call, that's a digits sent event, right? So then we're going to go to handle digits sent. So we go to handle digits sent, which is here. So we're console logging, again, like console logging, digits sent with the event detail. And then if it's empty, if it's not empty, my bad. If the digits that are sent along with it are not empty, then we set the keypad, we're calling the event create action, which changes it to say hang up, this button here. All right. And then we're also setting the number to save with the digits that were sent. And then we're setting the call status to call in progress. So that's why right here it says call in progress. Otherwise, it'll say, hey, please enter a phone number if it was empty. So now, when the action has ended, here, the action ended, which is what is sent when we click hang up. What that does, it launches, it runs the function handle action ended. And so we're setting the call status, the call has ended, which you see here. And then we have the contact. If it's not already in the contact list, but it already was, it will pop up the modal. But the number is already in the contact, so we don't have to worry about that. Cool. So that's that. And then here is kind of like how we're just a regular React. So we have everything here. Notice we're setting our VC keypad right here with the action text. We're setting call and the cancel text to hang up. So these are just strings, so that's fine. That's no problem to do that. And then, and then here's how we're getting the ref. So you have to put ref equals and then keypad in the curly braces. So that allows for up here that we can get the reference to it. So that's how we can get the reference. So it's kind of like some boilerplatey stuff, but you know, it is what it is. So that is how we use our web component in React. All right, cool. Now, awesome. And then also you can always go back later and see how to do it in Vue and stuff. So now our web component is becoming more awesome. Let's just skip that because we're running out of time. So let's talk about styling the web components. You saw a little bit of what we did, but that was within the web component, right? So showing it up. But what if you wanted the outer application? Let's say the outer application is buttons don't have a white background with green text and a black outline. We want to be able to have the web components seem as like a part of the outer application as much as possible, correct? Because it look weird, you know what I mean? So we want it to be, we want web components to feel like a part of the outer application, right? And so styling helps with that. And so right now, there's a couple of ways of being able to do styling. And so we have the CSS Custom Properties and then part. Let's talk about CSS Custom Properties first. I have a link to MDN so you can learn more about it. But let's say within our web component, there's a button. Let's say with our keypad, one of the buttons, let's call it button, right? Well, it is a button. And let's say the background color with custom properties, or you can do, or they're also called CSS variables, but you can set a variable and call it, let's say hyphen is important, my element hyphen button hyphen color. So you can set that and have a default of red. So if it's not set, then it'll be red, which is cool. But so if the outer application doesn't set something, you can have a fallback, all right, which is cool. And then in your and then in the outer application, you can set the variable hyphen my element hyphen button hyphen color blue. So that way, your outer application, all the button colors, the text are blue, and then within the web component, it'll also be blue. If you didn't set it, it's kind of cool, right? It's amazing. And so now the thing is, well, what if you wanted to set like the border radius of the button? Well, then you could put border radius colon variable hyphen my element hyphen border hyphen radius, and then if you you can set it that way and then have a default, let's say 2 or whatever. Cool, no problem. Well, what if you wanted to set the background color of your button? Well, then you could do, well, that is the background color. Let's say you want to set the font color. Then you put color colon variable hyphen my element hyphen color, and then set that. Well, what if you wanted to set another variable or something? You can see it could kind of get to be a lot, right? It could kind of grow pretty quickly. And with that, you're only allowing the certain things that you thought of. Well, there was another property that they wanted to set, but you never made it a variable, well, then they wouldn't be able to set it, right? So it's kind of locking into whatever you want. And that could be what you want. But let's say you want them to be able to style whatever and however they want, right? So that's where part comes in. And again, I have a link to MDN and a blog post from this person. I forgot the name, but Monica, I think their name was. And they kind of stepped through like how all this kind of came together, the whole part situation. So now let's say you have that same button in your web component, but this time let's call it part. Let's add this part attribute and let's call it button, right? Because it's a button. It's kind of like a way of tagging it, right? So here is in your web component, you have this button. Now to style that button in the outer application, you have the name of your web component. So let's say VC Keypad or Dwayne-made, right? The name of it, : part. And then the name that you gave it, which was button here. And then you can style it however you want. Because before, let's say we forgot font size. And then with the custom, with the CSS variables, you're stuck with whatever you set for the font size. Let's say maybe you want that. You only want your web component to have a certain font size. Then you can use the custom properties or CSS variables and leave it out. But if you want them to have full reign and do whatever they want with your web component, how we're styling, then you can use the part, which is pretty cool. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. So now, I created, again, I work at Vonage, and I like to create things to make it easier for people to be able to create applications to communicate with folks. So a chat app is a lot of things people want to be able to create and add to their applications. So now we understand at Vonage that the stuff that you use us for is only probably a small part of your application. So we want to make that as easy as possible to add that to your application because you have a whole other other stuff to do with your application. You know, communications is probably like a small part. So we want to be able to make that as easy as possible. Let us handle that. So we created a client SDK UI web components. So this basically helps you create like a chat app pretty quickly and as straightforward as possible. So I created these different components, web components, that they know what to do. They each know what their tasks are to do. So you don't have to worry about all that stuff. You just place wherever you want your messages to show up, you put VC-messages and they'll show up. You want a list of the members of the conversation, VC-members, you have a list of your conversations, of the people in your conversation. You want to be able to input the text for the chat, we have the VC text input. And then you want to see who's typing, we have the typing indicator web component, right? So you can mix and match and place them wherever you want in your application. You just pass in the conversation, they handle everything else. They know what to listen for, they know what to do, they know how to display things. Cool, you don't have to worry about that. All right, so now, but what if you want to style them? Because when I first created it, I just did it like with some standard styling. I guess people were using it and they wanted to be able to style them. So that kind of got me into the whole figuring out how to allow people to style things. So let's say here's our VC text input, right? So you can you can uncomment this text here. It'll show you, see how you can drastically change the look of your web component. And so again, so right here we have the button, which is here, the button. And like we're changing it to be the text red. We want a 2-pixel green solid border. The font size is 30 and the background is actually transparent. Then we have the input, which I called input because it's an input. And you see, we're just doing VC text input, the name of the web component, because to the browser, it's just like a regular element. So being able to specify it is as if you would do like an H1 tag or what have you. So that's pretty cool. And then you just put : part, the name, which is an input. And then you see I have the color of the text is red. Can't really see it because it's the background is like yellow. And we have the border radius is 0, so it's straight, like corners. Then we have the border is 4 pixels, blue dotted. So you can see we changed it completely from what it was before. Let's take another look at another example. So here is the list of the members. So the VC members. So you see how it looks? It has like a slight gray, a white, and a slight gray. Bam, changed it completely. Even added a border, added the dots. You can do whatever you want, right? Now, the issue I ran into was to get we call it like the stripes or what have you, I wasn't able to, with parts, to style that. So I had to use CSS variables to be able to set it. So you can see right here, I'm setting the variable for the nth child, like the odd ones, so like 1 and 3 to be green. And I'm setting the variable, the CSS variable for the even ones, 2 here, to be blue. So there's certain instances where you still would need to use CSS variables. All right, so that's that one. Then we have our keypad that we've been working on before. So you can see this is just the default value, right? So just a regular keypad. But let's say we wanted to use it for a gamepad, right? To be able to like move like a little spaceship around that's blasting asteroids or what have you, right? So we can totally change it. Bam. Oh, here we go. So now, see, we took out certain, let me show you the HTML for that. So here, here's the second keypad. So you see no display. So we remove display and we're changing the keys. So we're putting empty values so that they don't show up, so that there's nothing in them, but we're putting like little directional arrows. So for our keypad, and then we're changing the action text to be the little pew, right? So in our CSS, so we're the row positions and all these things. So I have links to like in the documentation and on all the different parts and how I named them and everything. But like so you can see like row position 4, right? And so the color is red, which is this here. So the 4th row, and it's red. Let's see. Oh wait, no wait, it's something else. That's something else. That's something. Oh wait, buttons. Here you go. And you can see I did the border radius of 100, so it's a circle, and then the 60 pixels, the height and width of that circle, and the background black. Let's see here. The button action. The background color is red with a border radius of 6. And then I have like the different, so again, the documentation shows like the different buttons. So like button 5, so button, so I called it button and position 5. So the one that's here, you see it is none. So that's why there's nothing that shows up there. And I have that for other things like in the 1st position, the 3rd position. So that's why they don't show up, right? And so now you can see it drastically changed from that regular keypad to like a little dial keypad, which I thought was pretty cool. So you can, as you can see, you can style it however you want and let the person using your web component use it however they see fit within their application. But it's still the same functionality. And then that's it. So thank you all for hanging out. Here's the link to the web series, link to my website if you want to check it out. Also, our APIs. If you want to be able to add some real-time communications to your applications, we can help you out with that. And to help you, like, again, like my blog series, web component blog series, you actually build real applications. So like we just saw the React Rolodex. So if you wanted to, you could actually you could follow along, use the coupon code. You can click show me the coupon code. It'll give you a coupon code for 10 euros. They'd be able to add in addition to like, I think the 2 euros you get for just signing up, and you'll be able to actually follow along and create an application where you can dial a phone number and the real world phone number will ring. And you'll be able to have a conversation through it. So that's what I show you in the React web component, web components in React application.
Can I ask you a question while you are in? So, is it possible, like, let's say there is a team that they are they are working on a React app, but maybe they want to migrate to Vue. Can they reuse these web components?
Yep, exactly. Yep, and that's exactly what I show on how to do it right. Yeah, so even the Vue one, I have Vue 2 and Vue 3, how to use web components. And so using the same React, the same web component, we create a thing called a, I call it vault. Like it's like a view vault, right? Where you put in the security code into the web application. It's initializing, but then you can actually enter in a code, and it will bring up the open the vault. And so I have like the whole thing here, so you can check it all out. And I talk about how to install it and all these things and get it working and stuff. And it's pretty cool. And so, yeah. So yes, you can reuse it in Vue, or even without a framework. You can use web components without a framework as well. And then for Angular, I have it to where it's like an Angular answers. So it's like you're selecting choices from like answering. There's like a quiz question, and you select the answer, and it'll let you know if it's right or wrong and stuff. So yeah, so that's what this one is here. And then again, I talk about all the different ways, like Angular, like the different versions of Angular and stuff, and what you need to do. And yeah, so that's that.
Really,
Let's see.
really good. So you have published that in on this website. Is it possible to reply to the Twitter thing that we did, so we can put this link so people can follow it up later?
Well, yeah. So people can always, like, even after the workshop, you can still go to myworkshops.live, and yeah, I probably should have said that. So what's going to happen is myworkshops.live. So once we're done, like, see, there's upcoming and then there's past. So you'll be able to check out the past ones. And so you'll always be able to go back, enter in the password, and check out the whole slides all over again, play with the examples, do whatever. You can do it all over again as many times as you want. And so, yeah, you'll be able to just click it. And so, yes. So you'll always have, as long as I keep paying the bill for this website, you'll always be able to go back and check out everything. And yeah. So, yeah, so you just, yeah. I wanted to just be able to have like one website you can just like put here and like, all right, there you go, wherever you want. So instead of having like a bunch of links at different places, it's all like one place.
Awesome,
so, yeah, so all this will
awesome.
be there. So, yeah.
Dwayne, do you want to tell us a bit about what you're going to show tomorrow to the people at the meetup?
Oh, so the meetup is basically going to talk about how I created like that WebXR tic-tac-toe game in like a week. And so being able to use like all the different things that are already out there. It's also called like AKA on the Code of Giants. So being able to create something that seems impossible, like a WebXR tic-tac-toe game with audio chat, and being able to do that with, like, within a week. And by being able to place all these different pieces to work together and being able to kind of like, so yeah, it's just about a way of kind of like using all these different things that are already out there together to be able to make things that seem impossible like possible. And so, you know, make
amazing. And you're going to be giving a talk at the conference. Do you want to say a bit about that as well?
So basically, I showed how to input a web component into a React application as it is now. But a lot of people aren't familiar that there's, well, a lot of people aren't familiar really with web components. So that's why I'm trying to bring awareness to web components. But a lot of people who use React aren't aware that there are an experimental branch of React where that has a full support for web components. So instead of having to do all these other things that we showed today in this workshop, it's just pretty straightforward. And I talk about like some of the benefits of that and things. And so I kind of quickly go over what web components are again for people that aren't familiar, who weren't at the workshop or what have you. And then I talk about like some of the benefits, and I show like the differences in between like how it is now and how it could be, and what we can do to hopefully bring that into the next version of React so that we all can have it and stuff. So yeah. So yeah, so we talk about that.
That's great. That's great.
Friday, the 27th. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for this.
No problem. Thank you for having me. Appreciate
it's
you.
on our YouTube channel, so if people want to watch it again, they can watch it because it's already there and it was live.
Yeah, and if you want to to play with the examples and create your own and all that stuff, you can also just hit the Cityjs conf, or I'm on Twitter also. Am I still sharing my screen?
Yes, yes, you are.
All right. So if anything, I don't use Twitter a lot. It's pretty much just to like, if people talk to me, like reach out. So if you want, if Twitter is a way that you want to reach out, here's my Twitter. It's lifelong dev. At least as long as Twitter lets me have it. So lifelong dev is my Twitter account, and so, but also you can go to my website because just in case if anything happens, because sometimes Twitter just cancel like to delete your account. So that way, if you go to lifelong.dev, my website, which is also linked here, right here, my website, I'll have a link to whatever my current Twitter is or whatever. And so there's that. And also my Instagram, I guess, if you want or whatever. Oh, I need to change that. I'm in Greece now. I got to change
Yes.
that. But yeah. So yeah, so reach out. If you want to do this again, I'll give you the password, or you can reach out to Cityjs Conf Twitter, and they'll give you the password, and you'll be able to go back and check out the slides and play with stuff. And I want it to be as interactive as possible because I think web components are awesome. So I want to do whatever I can to help you also think it's awesome. So yeah.
Thank you. And the Outcast are awesome.
Outcast is awesome.
Are they back together?
Probably not, but you know, the time when they were together, it was amazing. And so again, personal preference is just at the time I came out because I live in Florida. I'm from the South, and the way the impact that they had on me, because it's just so different from what else was there, and like what they were saying, it was amazing. And so that's why to me, they kind of like changed my whole progression as far as hip hop and like my whole vision of it. And so yeah, and then plus they were from the South, so that's why they're the greatest group of all time.
No, it's amazing. The lyrics and the music.
Yeah, they did something like special. It was great, and I appreciate them for that. So
I hope they come back together.
yeah, I mean it's cool, but if not, you know what I'm saying? It's I can always go back and enjoy what was there. You know what I mean? So yeah. So
thank you, Dwayne, and I will see you in Athens, and we will do a lot of stuff, and in the conference, it's gonna be a great one.
oh, it's gonna be great. So yeah, if you're out here, come out. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be cool. It's super cool. So yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting everybody and speaking with everybody and stuff. So yeah, feel free to you know, if you see me, say what up.
Thank you, and I will see you later.
All right, see you later. Thanks everybody.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.